مساء الهنا على حضراتكم. من غير مقدمات كتير عشان ده مش جو البودكاست الحقيقة، بس الحقيقة انه العمل الانساني التطوعي شيء عظيم جدا جدا. اللي بيمارسه بيحس بمتعة شديدة جدا، بيبقى عنده طاقة إيجابية عظيمة. اللي مش بيمارسه ساعات بيبقى عنده بعض الأسئلة عن الناس دي بيبقى تجيب المجهود والوقت ده ازاي وامتى، وطب بيستفيد ايه من اللي هو بيعمله. فأنا هنكش ضيفي الحقيقة في كل الحاجات دي عشان هو ممارس العمل الإنساني التطوعي تقريبا لأكتر من 14 سنة. جيريمي هوبكنز، ممثل منظمة اليونيسيف في مصر. جيريمي، نايس تو ميت، فرصة سعيدة.
فرصة سعيدة جدا.
أخبارك إيه؟
كويس الحمد لله.
أنا هنكشك بالعربي كتير.
حاول.
هحاول.
حاول.
ماشي، جاهز يعني؟
جاهز.
ليه مش عايز تعمل لقاء بالعربي؟
عشان ما بتكلم عربي كويس.
لا، أنت بتتكلم عربي كويس.
لا يعني شوية.
مش أنت قلت إن أنت مع الأطفال بتتكلم عربي؟ اعتبرني طفل اللي.
أنت مش طفل.
لا، أنا طفل،
عشان
أنا جوايا طفل. بص للي جوايا يا
لا،
جيريمي.
عندما بتكلم مع الأطفال بسأل اسمك إيه، عندك كم سنة، تعمل إيه دلوقتي، يعني أسئلة بسيطة. لكن لو عايزين نعمل حوار عميق
عميق.
بيكون صعب.
طيب، خليني أسألك أول حاجة عن، نرجع ورا شوية. we'll go back
مهم.
around 14 years when you finished your MA in Arabic and social anthropology,
Indeed.
Edinburgh,
Yeah.
Scotland.
Yeah.
What was Jeremy thinking of during that time for his career? What he wanted to do?
Well, good question. And actually, I knew already then that I wanted to go into this kind of field.
You already did.
I already knew, actually, even before I chose Arabic and social anthropology as my undergrad. So I was basically looking around for whether to start work or do a master's.
Mhm.
So I went home back to Kenya and asked around, and everyone was like, carry on with university, go and do a master's in the right subject, and then come back to us. So that's what was going through my mind. I really wanted to work in this sector, not necessarily UNICEF, not necessarily children, but in the field of development, humanitarian work was something I've been wanting to do since I was a teenager.
Why?
I think that the way I grew up, I was exposed to the challenges of development. I've grown up in a poor country, and you see what you think are the solutions to all the terrible suffering and troubles all around you. And but of course it's a specialist area, and so I wanted to study it and understand it better, and then engage with it and work on it.
Okay, but I also want to ask you about studying Arabic. Why?
Yeah.
Why did you decide
Well,
to study Arabic?
It's not a very deep answer. So I went to university in Scotland. You apply for one subject. Mine was social anthropology with economics, and you had to do a third subject, which you're supposed to drop after 2 years. And I wanted to do Spanish.
Okay.
Spanish class was full. This was before internet. You had to kind of queue up and sign up, and it was full. And I went to the next desk. It was Arabic.
And it was not full.
And it was not full. It was certainly not full. It was only 12 of us.
Okay.
And I must say, I loved it so much that the flexibility in the Scottish system allows you to change your degree at any point without having to repeat. And because I was doing both subjects, I was able to change my degree and do a joint honours social anthropology and Arabic.
Yeah, but usually it's not easy for any foreigner to speak Arabic. How tough was it studying Arabic?
It was tough. It was tough. I mean, it was like going back to school, like primary school, because you had to sit there and go sa, da, da, ta, da, and all that.
No, keep on going. It's interesting.
Kaf, ha. Yeah.
Okay.
All the difficult letters. And but Swahili. I speak Swahili, which is the national language of Kenya, and there's about 40-50% of the vocabulary from Swahili has its origins in Arabic. So already I had some exposure, and I really enjoy languages. So I didn't find it. I find the grammar actually quite straightforward in Arabic, but it's the challenge of actually the expressiveness of the language, which is so rich, which is what I still need to learn.
طب عندي سؤال. أنت تعلمت عربي، لغة عربية. فأين أذهب هذا المساء؟ ماذا نفعل الآن؟
بالضبط.
لما جيت تنقل بقى من اللغة العربية الفصحى دي للغة العامية في مصر، حسيت بلخبطة؟
أنا درست اللغة الفصحى العربية الفصحى 2 بعدين جينا هنا إلى مصر في التسعينات عشان الدراسة وفي الشهر غيرت
بدأت تتكلم عامية مصرية.
لكن أول يوم أنا أريد أن أذهب إلى البنك، يعني
فكنت
الناس
تلاقي
كانوا
ناس بتبتسم.
يضحكوا. لكن بعد شوية يعني غيرتها. دلوقتي باخذ جزء من العاميات من اليمن والأردن ومصر وشوية.
إيه آخر كلمة عربي تعلمتها في مصر طيب؟
اليوم
النهاردة؟
لا النهاردة لا، بس أمس كان مرعب.
مرعب.
سكاري. وبعدين اليوم كان
أنا عارف.
شابوش.
لا.
بشوش.
Okay. And what's the weirdest word you learned
ever in Arabic? بنفسجي.
Purple color.
It's just a crazy word. Yeah.
It's a bit complicated.
It's complicated.
Okay. So after you finished your MA studies, and what was your first step in this career that you wanted to pursue?
So I finished university. I did a master's in development studies after the Arabic and social anthropology, so a bit more focused on this profession, but still pretty general. And that was in London. And then I went back to Kenya to look for voluntary work in anything, because you're in that terrible catch-22 where you don't have any experience and no one will employ you without experience. But how will you get experience if no one will employ you? So I was looking for voluntary work, and
took some time.
It didn't take too long. I got a few rejection letters, and then I was suddenly invited for an interview for a job I hadn't applied for, but people had just heard that I was looking for something, for the World Food Programme in Somalia, where no one wanted to go because it was at the time quite dangerous. And so I went for the interview, not really sure what the job was, and got it. And then a month later, I was on a 3-month contract in Somalia.
But you weren't scared that you were hearing that it's not very safe there? And
I mean, I've grown up in Kenya knowing that Somalia is a very dangerous place and it's just next door. So I was a little bit worried, yes. And my parents were worried and my friends were worried. But then, of course, you get there and you realize it's never quite what it looks like or sounds like. And it was, once I was there, no, I wasn't nervous. No.
It was safer than you expected and heard.
It was, safe enough. I mean, we had some terrible incidents, like I was, shot at a few times and things like that. But I was there for 5 years, so I enjoyed it a lot.
5 years?
Yeah, I stayed there for 5 years.
And it started with a 3-month contract?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay, so you carried on in Somalia for 5 years?
Yes, yeah.
And then how did the connection happen between you and the UN?
So World Food Programme, I worked for them for 2.5 years. And then I was actually headhunted by UNICEF. Which also inside Somalia, and their office was on the other side of the road in this kind of bombed out town, which wasn't functioning very well, but this was a very small community of development professionals. And there was a post going, which was youth and child protection. So working with young people and working on child protection. It was the first of its type in that office. And they asked me to apply, so I did, and I got the job.
Interesting. And this was back in when, like 2011,
12? 2002. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. No, that was, I graduated in 99, actually.
99?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So 2002, you started working with the UNICEF?
Yes.
Interesting. And you stayed in Somalia?
Stayed in Somalia for another 3 years.
And then when did you move to another destination?
Then I went to Mozambique.
Yeah.
For in child protection. I was there for a few years as well.
Okay, so it's Somalia, Mozambique, Burundi, Kenya at first. You were looking to work there in voluntary work. And you've been to Central Africa, South Sudan, right? I'm naming a few.
Yes, you're doing very well, yeah.
Well, and throughout those countries you've been to, and then now in Egypt, definitely you remember one of the happiest situations and one of the worst. What is one of the happiest incidents you never forget?
I think I will. Yes, let me start with one of the happiest. You missed one country, which was Yemen.
Oh, Yemen.
So I was in Yemen. And
but I did a good job. I said most of the countries.
You did very, very well.
Come on, appreciate. I don't know that.
I appreciate it, but my happiest moment is going to be in Yemen. Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And I mean, we had a range of challenges, as I'm sure you can imagine, in Yemen. I arrived there in 2011, left in 2015. So we saw the end of the Arab Spring, the beginning of the war, and the current war, which continues sadly. I mean, I'm talking about happiest professionally, right?
Yeah.
I think happiest professionally When I arrived in Yemen, the level of malnutrition was the highest in the world. It was over 50%, which means that 50% of children were stunted, which means that their bodies are too small and their brains never fully develop to their full capacity. And the damage is done by the time the child is 2, and it's irreversible, 50%, which I find upsetting just to think about. We put a huge amount of resources and energy and time and effort and collaborating with government and with with various governments and with the development partners and with the other parts of the UN. And by the time I left, we had brought that down by about 10%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's good. It's a very fast change.
Definitely. In how many years?
For stunting, in 4 years.
Okay.
And that for me that's what we're here to do, or that's what I'm here to do anyway. And I really found that it's not maybe a moment, but it was a very, very satisfying achievement.
Definitely, 10% is definitely a huge number. Yeah. Maybe within a 50%, it doesn't sound much, but I'm sure this is a very good number.
Yeah, and from 50 to 40, so it's
very good in 4 years.
A few 100,000 children less are malnourished.
And what's the worst?
Worst? Well, maybe I'll go back to that incident in Somalia where we were shot at. So I think that was, and that comes it does come in the line of duty sometimes. So I was just getting off a small plane on a small airstrip in the middle of nowhere. And so the plane is just there, and there was actually no government, even no recognized government, or no one pretending to be government at that time. So it's just the local authorities that you work with. And so we got off the plane, and our cars were there, and the plane doors were open, and we were just getting the luggage off, and then we heard someone cocking their guns in about 200 meters away. And so luckily someone heard it, and we were like, get down. So we hit the ground, and then basically this group of armed men proceeded to shoot at us.
Anyone got hurt, injured?
People got killed, yeah.
From the other side?
From both? No, from the other side, and from our side, some people got injured. Yeah, and it's awful. And these are kind of, it's upsetting because these challenges are faced by so many people all around the world, trying to work in these difficult conditions. And it didn't in this case because we managed to sort of get through it, but it can really damage the development work and the humanitarian work we're trying to do. So.
And that brings me to a question that definitely have faced a lot in all those countries you have visited. What is a misconception of people might have about the UNICEF and the UN in general?
Well, I think, that's a really interesting one. I do actually spend a lot of time chatting about that to my friends. The UN is formed by the member states, of which Egypt is one equal member. And I think the misunderstanding, or at least what I like to clarify, is that we are here to help the government, the government of the member state in question, in this case Egypt, to meet its international obligations vis-a-vis our mandate. So our mandate is child rights. The Egyptian government has signed the Convention on the Rights of the Child, as has pretty much every other member state. And our job is to help the Egyptian government meet those standards that they have committed to. It's not that we are not coming from sort of outside to impose an agenda that is ours. This is something that is owned as much by the government in the country where we're working as any other member state. So, and I think that is a misconception which occurs where we're often viewed as a sort of an international organization that is coming to impose something from outside, whereas actually we are simply assisting at the invitation of the government to reach its commitments that it has already made. And that's the same for all parts of the UN pretty much.
Okay. And let me put this, it might be the same question, but I'll put it in another way. Like, if any of our audience now is listening to us and they don't really know what is UNICEF doing, what would you tell them as a brief about the mission of the UNICEF?
So I would say I would say, and I do say, that we are here to help the government meet its obligations to children. We are not here as an NGO to work directly with children. That's really good work, but it's not our job. Our job is to strengthen the government systems to meet international standards on child rights.
Yeah, that's the general explanation. I mean, what do you really do with children and for children to make sure they are having their own rights in education, in health, in everything?
So, for example, let's take education and health. If the government has a commitment to its citizens to educate every child, for example, right? And we will then work with the Ministry of Education on a number of areas. So we'll work on the quality of the education. We'll work on getting out of school children into school. We'll work on training of the teachers. We will, if asked, assist with curriculum development. We can look at the sort of graduation between primary and secondary. We can look at life skills that are sort of complementary. So we'll do all this either with the Ministry of Education or other parts of government. And occasionally we'll partner with civil society, because in every context there is always a role for civil society. But we do this always in partnership and collaboration. Ministry of Health would be similar. For example, there is a commitment from the government to vaccinate every child, right, against killer diseases. Mm-hmm. So we will work with the Ministry of Health to make sure that the staff have the training and have the tools and the equipment to do that. And they do in Egypt. And Egypt has very good rates of vaccination, by the way. And if a new vaccine needs to be introduced, we will assist with the training on how to handle the new vaccine. We might assist with the cold chain, the fridges, which are needed to keep the vaccines cold until they're delivered, the awareness at community level on how to ensure that parents understand the importance of vaccinating their child at the right time and why you should vaccinate the child. So we do all this, but again, always with the concerned ministry, because if we want a sustainable result, it has to be through the government system.
Okay, and طب انت بقالك 4 سنين في مصر دلوقتي، صح؟ قول لي حاجة من الحاجات اللي لما جيت مصر كان نفسك تحققها مع الأطفال وحققتها.
Okay, and I indeed established certain, let's say, strategic objectives when I arrived here. I wouldn't say we're quite there, but we're very well on the way, and that is to bring our youth programming to a higher level. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we met at the World Youth Forum, right? Yeah. So what we established when we looked at the sort of landscape around young people is that there is lots and lots of work being done, but it's a little bit scattered. And the work UNICEF was doing was not at a sufficient scale. And if we're in a country with 100 million people and 27 million young people, scale means millions. You know, 10,000 is not enough. 10,000 young people is not enough. We need to be reaching millions, changing things for all young people, or at least most young people. So I'm really pleased that we have been able to establish this platform, Shabab Balad, mm-hmm. Which is associated with a global platform called Generation Unlimited, which brings together young people, the UN system, not just UNICEF, the government under the leadership of Ministry of International Cooperation, and the private sector are very important, to chart out some strategic objectives of what we Egypt wish to achieve for young people by 2027 or 2030, and then bring partners together. Now, I say we're not quite there yet because the results take time, but the fact that we're all there having this dialogue and coming together around commonly shared strategic vision, I think is a huge achievement in terms of a sustainable result.
طيب، وما بين البلاد اللي انت كنت فيها كلها، دلوقتي مصر، قبل كده اليمن، الصومال، موزمبيق، بوروندي، name 2 similarities and 2 differences you have noticed between the Egyptian children and the children you have met elsewhere in terms of potential challenges, whatever. 2 similarities, sure. 2 differences.
Well, I think every child is the most beautiful thing ever in any country from True. Any background. So that is definitely something that Egyptian children share with every other child in the world. I think also that some of what young people want, let's say teenagers, what they want out of life is quite similar. They want a job, they want security, they want to have fun. I mean, those are the 3 things. When you're a sort of mid-teenager, that's what you're wondering about going forward. And that I also find the same in
not only teenagers, actually. We always dream of these 3 things.
Exactly. I think what Egypt has, which is special and perhaps different, is I think it has a high level of, it's a bit technical, but I mean, a high level of digital engagement. I think that's unique for me compared to the other countries where I've worked, which have tended to be poorer than Egypt. And I think that there is a strong tertiary education system and a great willingness to pursue university after secondary school. I haven't seen that in many of the other countries I've worked in where many people have to kind of stop at 16, 18 years old and get on and work. I think here there's a good understanding and very demanding population of young people. And that's fairly unique.
Jeremy, you know that some people now who might be listening to us might question, well, Jeremy is half Kenyan, half British, and he studied in Edinburgh. Why did he leave Scotland or the UK and decide to go to those places where there are a lot of challenges over there?
It's a very good question. And I ask myself the same sometimes. I mean, I think I find it extremely fulfilling to do this work, and I really enjoy going to a new country. Although Egypt is not so new because I studied Arabic and I've been here before, but I enjoy coming to a country, understanding in detail the people, and it's always about the people, right? It's about getting to know the people and the context and the politics and the development challenges and seeing how we can do our piece. I believe very strongly in UNICEF's mandate. I think it's a very noble mandate, fulfilling child rights.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have no interest in living in Scotland or England, but maybe why would I not want to live in Kenya with my family? I think I would, but I also think that I can grow professionally and I can enjoy what the world is by moving and taking my experience from place to place and growing in each place. If I stay in one place, I'm a smaller person.
Yeah, interesting. And I hope you don't mind if I asked, definitely with your work with children throughout the years you've been working with UNICEF, there is this type of connection that happened between you and the children, especially when you find children facing some challenges. There is an inside drive that you get that you want to help them as much as possible, right?
Definitely.
I'm putting this now because I would like to know, how do you perceive, if you don't mind, what's happening to the children in Gaza, for example, while people are seeing that the world is not really able to help as much as needed?
Yeah, it's very, very painful. What's happening in Gaza is, a catastrophe and a disgrace. And it's a whole host of child rights violations. I mean, that's clear and obvious. It's very painful. My accountabilities and responsibilities are here in Egypt, but of course I belong to an international organization that has responsibilities and accountabilities in every country in the world, including
But if you don't mind,
Gaza.
sorry for interruption,
Yeah.
I'm putting this in front of you now, not as a person who is working with the UNICEF. I'm putting it in terms of your passion towards helping children. How do you see that while no one can help as much as we all need and wish?
Well, I think people can help and people are helping. And I think I'm actually really pleased that in our office, I know you're asking personally, but I think it has a personal dimension to it. In our office, we've been able to contribute to the little help that is happening. And I think that's been really important for our mental health, to see this terrible situation happening so close to us and feel a little powerless to be able to stop it. I mean, none of us are able to stop it, as you pointed out. But we are able to do our bit, and we are doing our bit, which is to facilitate the humanitarian aid through Egypt into Gaza. It's very, very painful for me being so close to this and not being able to do it.
Yeah, we all wish it ends as soon as possible, hopefully. Getting back to Egypt, if anyone is listening to us now and is thinking of, well, I would like to work in this humanitarian field, what would you give them as an advice?
I would, and I do get that question quite a lot. I think, there's a tendency to want to work for the UN straight away. I don't think that's helpful either for the person or for the UN. The UN wants to recruit people who've got really great experience to give. So my advice to people is go out and do work with people, work with children directly for small organizations, get to know the real nuts and bolts of what it's like to work at community level before you start looking for more strategic roles and more senior roles, which of course everybody wants because they're sort of marching forward on their career. If you get that community-based experience, you are much better able then to strategically advise at the higher levels once you get there. So my advice is that, and my advice is also do a master's. It's a competitive world, and I think masters, apart from being a framework to mature, they also allow you, of course, to specialize in a specific area. So I give those two pieces of advice, and I always tell people, don't rush, just take your time, because you have your whole life.
Yeah. And عارف انت بتحب السفر. You like traveling a lot.
I do like traveling.
Yes, and you like to try new things. So tell me about the different things that you tried when you visited different cities in Egypt, and some of which that you were impressed. It could be food, it could be different, something like singing with the Nubians in Noba when you went there, for example, in Aswan.
I think, well, a couple of things. Food-wise, I have been extremely impressed with the food in Fayoum and in Siwa.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I guess these are oases. I haven't been to all the other oases, but maybe it's an oasis thing. But I really like the natural, organic nature of the food and the recipes. I have enjoyed very much doing some trekking in Sinai, which is not something you can do in other countries. I surf, and I have managed, I think, against all odds, to find a tiny wave to surf in Sahel, which was fun.
You did?
Yes,
Okay.
I did. Yes, I was quite surprised. I wasn't expecting that, but that was great. I really enjoy going on the feluccas. It's a very nice way to get a little bit of peace and calm in this large.
It's a type of
city.
meditation.
It is.
Especially the connection with the Nile is really different.
Yeah.
And I think you have noticed this when you met the people in Aswan, because they have a lot of characteristics that is common with the Nile. They are very calm and slow, and like how the water moves in the Nile.
Yes, yeah, it's a real pleasure. Yes, to visit the different parts of the country. One thing I'd never done before, and I got quite into it for a while, was rowing on the Nile, which for me is a very exciting and romantic idea. But I did that for about a year or two. I think that that's a sort of scattered
interesting
selection of the things that I've done here that I haven't done anywhere else that I've really enjoyed.
True. What's your bigger dream?
My bigger dream?
Yeah, actually your biggest dream.
Professionally or personally?
Both.
Professionally, it sounds a little bit, maybe it's not going to sound very dramatic, but my dream is that in every country in the world, there is it's called the Universal Child Grant, that every family receives a small grant for their family, according to the number of children they have. If we did that in every country in the world, then I think we would see the end of poverty quite fast.
Interesting.
That's my professional dream.
I hope so. And your personal dream?
My personal dream is probably to have children.
Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I wish you all the best. And I would say that I personally loved to have this, I wouldn't say interview, but discussion with you, because I totally respect what you do on a personal level and with UNICEF. I see your effort. I see how the children love meeting you in different cities when you go once and twice. So these vibes that I see in the children's eyes and their energy says that you're doing a great job.
Well,
so best of luck
Thank
always.
you, Rami. And if I may say, nothing we do on our own. So we do it in partnership, and this particular conversation is in partnership. So thank you for your role in this, and I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye.